Get ready.
Okay, we're back after a short break. Thank you. So now we are on to new business. Consideration and approval of the local credentialing committee handbook. No, we're switching. Consideration and approval of the peer mentor and support handbook. So let's take a motion in a second so we don't forget to do it later. Do we have a motion? Thank you, Lindsay. Second? Candy? Okay. Cynthia.
Okay, good evening. So the handout that you want to look at is 13B. This one that is in, I'm not sure what you call it, taupish color? Okay. Oops, let me just get myself together here. There we go. Ooh. Okay, so I brought, I wanted just to start before we actually get into the body of that. I just wanted to read a small section from Chapter 180, which was revised, Chapter 180 being the PE-PG system, the evaluation system that we have to follow by law and we created and adopted. So the revision to the Chapter 180 now includes a mentoring and support component. And it says the PE-PG system must include a formative peer mentoring component of at least 1 year for all teachers new to the SAU, regardless of their cumulative years of licensure. So whether they're a first-year brand new out of college teacher or somebody who's been a veteran teacher for 10 years in another district, but they're brand new to the SAU or RSU 5, then they have to have a minimum of 1 year of mentoring. The formative mentoring component must include at least 2 observations with feedback by a qualified peer mentor, and qualified means they've been trained, and includes but is not limited to the focus goals of improvement practice. And then one more sentence, the peer mentoring must also include other opportunities for the new teacher to receive support and feedback from mentors on his or her performance to continually improve his practice. So that's why we're here at this point we're adding this mentoring component, to our PE-PG evaluation system. So you have the document in front of you. I want to take you first, because you're going to be voting on this, to 4 edits that I'd like to make. They're really tiny edits. If you go to page 5, I've read this document and reread it and revised it and met with committee. Anne Marie's laughing because she's been part of the process I don't know how many times. At least I've probably read it at least 100 times. And even today, rereading it before this meeting, I found 4 things. So on page 5, on page 5, where it says a little bit more than halfway down, the role of the assistant superintendent. So the very first bullet ensures that all new educators in RSU number 5 have a mentor. I want to add the following to that, including educators hired after the start of the school year, because we had forgotten about that. There's always a time when we hire somebody maybe in October or November for a variety of reasons. And then if you go to page 8, the very last sentence on page 8. Originally, we used a beginning teacher, we used a beginning educator. So to be consistent, and it is in every other part of the document, but I'd forgotten this one piece, where it says beginning teacher in the last line, if you could change that to newly hired educator, because that beginning teacher feels more like it's just a first year ever teacher. And then to page 10. On page 10, under mentor chair, the heading mentor chair, second heading, the third bullet, where it says meet the teams as needed, that starts like that. On the second line down, that italicized part is referring to an appendix, and it doesn't match the heading on the appendix. So I'd like you to cross out where it says mentor/newly hired teacher match survey, and I'll replace it with newly hired educator, again, staying consistent, and mentor match survey. And then parenthetically, I added Appendix G. So if you were to flip to Appendix G in the appendices, you would see that is the actual heading or the title for that. And then the last one is on the last page, 12, where it's in May. Or not, it's not the last page, it's before the appendices, but it's page 12. We're adding a bullet in May, just underneath the other bullets, it should say mentor in parentheses, because this section is both mentor and newly hired educator together, so this would be specifically for the mentor. Submit certification recommendation form. And then parenthetically, Appendix F. To LCC, and that's an acronym for the Local Credentialing Committee, which we've referred to before in this document, by May 1.
Can I ask you a quick question on that one?
Sure.
I'm fine with that addition. I would just say if you're going to use LCC in this one, I would use LCC in the two above it, but or below it, wherever that goes in. I was just curious why existing bullets 3 and 4, they look to be the same thing. So is there a reason you distinguish between first-year mentors and second-year mentors specifically to that one when they have to do the exact same things?
So the difference is if, and you'll see in the last Appendix J, I think this is why we did this. If you are brand new, so the minimum requirement by law is they have to have a mentor for 1 year. We have decided that we're going to have a brand new teacher have a mentor for 2 years, so they would have the second year.
Right. But the second bullet is mentors document meetings. I presume that's for both first and second year. And then the one you just added is mentor, which I presume is both first and second year. It's fine. It's nothing. It's not material. I was just curious if there was a difference.
I'll talk to you about it after. I'm just
That's
not
fine.
getting it. Okay. Okay. So if you want to just open up to the first page, I'm not going to go through this every section of it, but I'm going to highlight a couple of sections. So the first part is the rationale. And the last sentence in that first paragraph, the rule establishes peer mentor and support program that must be in place to support staff in their professional plan. That is directly coming from the requirement, section 11. Before Volley left, she came over because she had to leave, and she said she really liked it, but she likes the document, and she had a couple of suggestions, which I'll share when we go through. But one of the things she said, and I want to put that out to you for your input, is that maybe because the next part is really like an upbeat letter to, start it off, that feels better as a start off, so that maybe this rationale goes at the end of the document somewhere. So I'm just going to, to me, it doesn't matter as long as it's included in there. And I don't know if you want me to let you know, Michelle, that Maddie has her hand raised, because I know you can't see.
I swear Valley and I did not speak, but I circled rationale and I wrote, why? What's our purpose? Make this welcoming. So yeah, it feels like a lot of legalese at the top of a document that a newly hired educator is going to get. I mean, I understand this is a legal requirement, but I feel like we should personalize it. So
Or just stick it in the end.
I would say if just swapping those two things accomplishes that end, that'd be great.
So I can moving it somewhere else is fine. Okay, I'll just move that then. So then the letter is just a welcoming letter. Should I continue on until you have, okay. And the next page, it kind of just differentiates the role of the evaluator versus the role of the mentor and how they're separate. And what your mentor's role is for you. It's really formative and supporting and acculturating you to your new school, your new position. On page, let's see, on page 4, it talks about the goals and what the requirements, what's at the heart of the program. On page 5, Vali had suggested there was a redundancy, and I did pick up on that today as well. It's just repeating it in a couple of ways. The very top sentence, it says all active mentors are required to attend 4 mentor support meetings per year during their tenures as members. And it's also in paragraph 3. The third line down says active members will participate in 4 support meetings each year during their mentor term. So I could, her suggestion was to remove the top one, and maybe I could bold it in the other paragraph. So
I think what you don't want to lose in the top one, presuming it's what you intended, is the top one says required,
Correct.
and this one says will participate. Sounds less firm.
And I think that's why we did it that way, so that it's separated out, that it is part of the stipend position that is required.
It does crack me up that the mentors need a support group, but
It's each other, really. Okay, and then the role of the assistant superintendent is really, it's not to be in the weeds with it at all. It's just to ensure that I support the chair to carry out all of the things that are there. Like, I've been very involved in the handbook and very involved in the training, and in fact, we met this week with Emily Gribben from the Department of Ed. We've gone through training modules. We spent 4 hours on that, and we've got another scheduled time, and that is happening on June 24th and 5th. So it's really to ensure and help support that things are happening, but I won't be present at that training because it really is meant for those candid conversations and questions, so they don't have that evaluative feel. There's a real separation of that. And then the next section, page 6, it goes through the role of the mentor chair, the role of the mentor, and then the mentor chair and I communicate regularly. The mentor chair works with the building administrator to make a good pairing between the mentor and mentee from that pool of trained mentors. And then she communicates, I'm saying she because, well, yeah. So anyway, so she will make sure that, you know, she communicates with me if there's a problem that I need to communicate with the building administrators, that, oh, make sure you're not asking the mentors something specific about the mentees, because that's not their role, is to, you know, report to you. That you can suggest that they work with you on something, but it can't go in reverse. Something like that, for example. So there's that communication piece and the real separation of roles. So she oversees the mentors and ensures that the training happens. And then the mentor, the newly hired educator, has responsibilities to advocate for themselves, share their needs, and really the idea is that they're learning partners together. And the idea is that you establish a relationship, you know, what's going well, and the conversations always start out with, you know, what are your needs? And how can I support you? And page 8 focuses on confidentiality. And, you know, there is a caveat where if with permission, things can be shared. So if the mentee gives permission to the mentor to share, then that's the only case. Unless there's something illegal happening or something that breaks a policy, then it should remain confidential. There's also a piece in there where we, in late October, we give a survey to all of our mentees and ask them if they feel they have a good match. It's not too in-depth, it's in the appendix. It's just because we want to make sure that they feel they have a good match. They don't put their names on it unless they choose to. And they can, they're told that they can reach out to the chair if they need some support. The idea would be to work through if there's a problem, and otherwise we can come up with some other solution, but to have a solution. And then the next section, pages 9 through 12, are the timelines of when things should be done. The mentor chair will collect certain documents that shows that there's recorded meetings that are happening. We don't specify you have to meet for 1/2 hour every week. We suggest regular meetings. We'll suggest in the training, or I won't be there, but the chair and the trainers will suggest that they meet weekly, schedule weekly, so that way if there's a week they can't meet, they they can cancel a meeting, but that it's a placeholder that's there, and if you're not meeting for once every 2 months, you're not mentoring. So, and then they have to have specific agenda, or an agenda that they've created together. They record on the anecdotal record. They have to turn in their time record to show that they have actually met with them. And so that's the end of the actual document. The appendices are the rest of the document. Appendix A is the observation form. If you go to Appendix J, it's the last page. That might be a quicker place to start. It lines out what we decided would be appropriate for RSU 5. This also follows Section 11 in Chapter 180, so some of it is directly related to that. So we followed the minimum requirements. In some cases, we've added. So anyone who's already on a plan and already existing that has been hired, they will get the 1-year mentor. They'll have the 3 observations, and we will use, if you look at the focus for their professional growth plan, we will use their existing program and the evidence they have. If they don't have an existing program, then they'll fall under using the Kim Marshall rubrics. All of this will fall, all of their growth plans will now follow the Kim Marshall rubrics, which is what we've adopted, and it's been approved by the state, and it already follows all of the standards. So it's not the teacher standards anymore as they were separated out. Those are all embedded in our approved plan. The state has approved that, so that's where all of their professional growth plans will develop from. There's 6 domains in most of them. The classroom teacher rubrics has classroom management, planning and prep, all of those things. So their plans would be developed from some area in the rubric where they need that support. And then it goes through and talks about, just one other example from this page, if there's a teacher with a conditional certification in regular education and brand new to education, they automatically get 2 years. There's some, the next one down, conditional and special ed in year 2 or 3 of conditional, they might get 1 to 2 years. So there's some that will be decided based on a principal recommendation whether they get a 2nd year or not. But what we want to do is not leave them floundering if they need more support. So those can be decided that way. But the brand new ones will get 2, veterans will get 1, and then it goes forward from there. There's a special condition for special education as well. Their first year they get a state supported mentor, so that's recorded in here as well. So then if you go back to Appendix A, That's the observation form. Most of them are 3 times a year. So they'll turn that in. That has to be recorded that they've done 3. It doesn't have the detail in there. The detail is in the discussion that the mentor and mentee will have and recorded on separate notes. The next appendix is really just a suggested list of some monthly discussion points. Not all of these have to be covered. It's really on what the needs are, and it depends on the level. A high school is going to talk about SAT, where an elementary school is not going to. I did have a couple, Volley did make a couple of suggestions that I thought one was right on, talking about storm days and the impact on learning. I think we have in December or January in here. Well, we've had, a couple of October days where we've had weather-related, so we're going to call it weather days and how they impact learning, and we'll move it up to earlier in the list. And so that's...
Yeah, because August and September don't look very full or anything.
I know, exactly. And that was it. So basically, this is not a have-to list. It's an appendix with suggested, in case they run out of things to talk about, which they won't. And then the rest of them
Can
are...
we ask a quick question?
Yeah.
Maddie?
I had a suggestion to add something to August and September. Just a review of mission statement and school culture.
I mean, this looks like they could spend a week talking about all this stuff. They get a half an hour a week? That's the expectation?
No, their expectation is regular meetings. They could choose to meet for an hour and a half the first week and then not meet the next week and then meet 40 minutes. It's really their partnership, and we're not going to dictate that but they're going to have a log. So the chair will say, okay, you haven't met for a month, if that's the case.
Well, I'm just thinking this is a lot of things, and I know it's a suggested list.
Right.
But for a brand new teacher to the district, most of this is probably essential learning for them, right?
So remember that a couple of things. We do have induction day in August,
Okay.
where I spend a full day with them, and I have other people come in. Certification comes in, does about a half hour. HR comes in and goes through several things. This time their mentors are going to be there for part of the day. They'll have time that day to talk about some of these things. The second day of induction is with their, we've done a couple of things. And I think we're going to lean toward this, but we haven't actually scheduled this yet. Last year, for the first time, we scheduled a half a day. If they were K-5, for example, teachers, we scheduled a half a day with the literacy coach in the morning with the K-5, anybody who taught K-5 literacy, to front load them with things that would be relevant to, no matter what grade. Because there's a lot of, gearing up that has to be done in the TC work and math. And then the other half was math. So that would be part of it. And then the principals also have spent time talking to them about the evaluation process and, acclimating them to their classroom and all of that. So some of these things will happen in those days already. But there's no way around it. There's a lot of front loading that has to happen. So the mission and vision.
Yeah, well, and I would say school culture, because I'm thinking about the program we have in place for new freshmen at the high school. Like that's to make the kids feel welcome and like they're meeting people and they know about clubs. And I think newly hired educators need that too. And I mean, it's a big job. It's a huge job. And I think it'd be really easy to get lost in all the details of the job and perhaps inadvertently not get welcomed properly. And that's the best opportunity we have to retain somebody we want to retain, is that they feel welcome right away.
And then the next, I'm sorry.
Are you moving off of the list, or can I ask you a question about the list?
We can stay on the list.
Appendix B?
Yeah.
So can these only be covered in a meeting? I'm just thinking, some of these
No.
I'm looking at, like maybe it comes up as a new hire, have to deal with it, because that's kind of how you would retain it better too.
Absolutely. This is just there as a resource. It's not, you don't have to do all these things at these times. This is just and that's how it will be presented to the mentors. That this is a list of, don't forget to talk about IEPs, and don't forget to talk about, and it would be organic if, there's a issue with a student that comes up in that very first walkthrough that happens, and the mentor says, well, let's check, does that student have an IEP, or, so that would be an organic way, and it should be organic. This shouldn't be prescriptive, go through these, and check all these boxes. It's really not meant for that. It's more of a helpful resource of, you might forget about some of these things, or a talking point. Like, what does that mean? Or, what's target solutions and that kind of thing. So it really was meant more as an aid and not a prescription.
It is interesting. Some of them are very technical, basic things, like the machinery, the copier, the
Right.
And then there's just one bullet: effective teaching.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but the mentor is available just every day too, right?
Exactly. I could go down the hall and say, can we meet today? I really need your help with something. That, it doesn't mean you can only meet during that one time. They develop a relationship and they figure out what the best combination is going to work for them. Any more on B? Okay. And C is just the anecdotal records of their meeting. And they keep a file. All the mentors keep files. And C is just, again, it's not to evaluate anything in here. It's just a sample of something that was talked about in one situation. It's made up. Appendix D. Meeting tips, and so we give recommended resources. I think we talk about the strategic plan. That's not yet there, but it will be. The handbooks of the school, this handbook, the local credentialing handbook, curriculum resources, calendars, all of that. So this again is more of a how to be prepared for your meetings, how to start your meetings, talking points. There may be eventing, but you don't want that to be a theme. Give a couple minutes to that, and then turn it into a solution-oriented or problem-solving process. How are things going is a great way to start. Right. And then the next one is the record that will be turned into, the monthly record that will be turned into the chair. The next one is the certification recommendation form. So the mentor also has a role of, they help them, they make them familiar with the rubrics. So whatever their role is, if they're special education teacher, phys ed teacher, whatever rubric that they're under, they've reviewed that with them. They've given them, they've observed them. They've talked about what goals that they want to work on, and they're helping them with their professional growth plan. And then the mentor is responsible to ensure that it gets to the building rep for the LCC, which you're going to hear about after this. So that job is now off the reps, the building rep of the local credentialing committee's shoulders in terms of going to actually see each individual. Whoever the mentor is responsible to getting that to the building rep, because they're helping them with the whole process. So this ensures that they have their plans pre-approved. Then at the end, they bring all of the evidence that their plan, how they've met their goals and work toward them. And then, and then if they're pre-approved, and then the chair of the certification committee is the one. Well, the committee says, yes, we approve that. They have met all of their points, and then they get approved in the electronic system by the chair. The next one is the end-of-year mentor survey. This is really a program evaluation, so we're asking all of the mentors to give us feedback and just some basic questions. What was helpful to, how were you helpful to your mentee? Areas that you felt that your mentee needed the most help, because if we had a lot of feedback that said they all, 90% of them needed the most help in classroom management, then we would use that to say, okay, do we want to, what can we provide for our new teachers for professional development in addition to that for classroom management? Like we're doing responsive classroom, for example, right? That's one example. And it just gives us feedback on what we would do differently or, with our 4 mandatory days. And what were some challenges. So it's really feedback as the program, and then the appointment agreement, and that's it. And by the way, they're using ours as a model at the state.
Well done.
Just FYI. Yeah, I know, it's so great.
Can I ask 2 quick questions?
Yes.
Is the expectation that for the brand new teachers, the 2-year would be the same mentor through both years?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Unless there's a problem, the assumption is that they would be the same.
And then it's just sort of the same list of just a little bit deeper in terms of the content. I mean, obviously they'll know where the printer is by then, but so more, the second year would be more teaching stuff.
Right. If you have a veteran teacher, they may have some of these, they may have a third of these already down, right? It just depends on the individual. So their focus is going to be different. But.
And maybe, I don't know if you've thought about this or not, but so this will go into place next year, right?
July 1.
And we're only required to do 1 year for everybody, but our goal for brand new teachers is 2. Was there any thought given to brand new teachers this year that they might get a mentor for next year for that second year of coaching, or?
Yes, but we have to train all of our new, we have to train everyone. And in June, and we have had on average of 25 new hires for the last 3 years, each year. And so getting a pool, they have, remember, anybody who's going to be a mentor has to have an effective rating, an overall effective rating. They have to have been in the district for 3 years. They have to have a professional certificate, so that narrows the number there. And then they have to want to do it. So I sent out the interest form and asked just some 5 basic questions. I think I've got 30, and I know one more at least. And then I know at Moore Street, they talked a little bit about it today at the staff meeting. And I think a couple of more might be added to that. So let's just say we had 34 or 5 that are interested. So they have to go to that training, and then they are in that pool. So if we need 25 again, if the pool is 34, we wouldn't have enough basically to go backward. Yeah. And
Okay.
But yes, because we feel badly, right?
Yeah. Right. Because they started a year too early to take advantage of it. So the idea is that it would be a mentor in their building?
Yes, the preference is always going to be a mentor in your building, close to the grade level that you teach, if possible. If it's PE, that's probably. So you can have either a PE teacher from Freeport High School come to do a Freeport teacher or mentor with a Freeport teacher from Freeport Middle School. That's close proximity. That's probably doable. Or you could have the guidance counselor at Freeport Middle School was a teacher prior to this, and she happens to be on the list. And so she could do a classroom teacher, for example. So we gotta look at their backgrounds and what their strengths are, because they filled out why they would be a good one and anything else we should know. And some of them wrote those things down. They said, I'm willing to do anyone in K-5. So we'll look at that as well. But the idea is close proximity, so there's not a lot of travel. and they can build a relationship in the building.
Yeah.
That's the preference.
I'm worried about Pownell and the turnover they've had in
Yes.
the last few years.
Yeah.
I mean, there's not many teachers in that building to begin with because
Correct.
of the size of the school. And I'm not sure any of the ones, I mean, there's a couple. Is there any that have been there 3+ years?
We do have 2 signed up.
But she's retiring, right? Yeah.
We do have 2 signed up.
Okay, good. So, I mean, hopefully,
Yeah.
hopefully the need there isn't great. So,
Yeah.
okay. Maddie?
Do you rely on people raising their hand and saying they're interested, or do you also do a little bit of tapping on the shoulder and
Oh,
recruiting?
I've sent the interest form out twice.
No, but do you have, like, would Will, like, look around? Could you get to Will and say, Will, I only got 6 people from your school, and he'd be like,
Yes.
oh, so-and-so didn't sign up, I'll go talk to that person. You do that?
Yes, and I've already shared the list.
Good.
Yeah, I've shared the list
I
with
just wanna
them so they could see that and say, oh, I know this one would be good, like.
Because people
so-
don't always know that they're going to be good at mentoring.
Right.
So it's important for us to also let them know, we see you as good at this, please step up.
Yep. And some of them who've signed up to train, they might not necessarily have a mentor pairing, right? So there's some that'll be trained, and they might decide this year, I am finishing my graduate degree, I'm not going to have time, but maybe next year they'll come to the training, but they'll wait a year too.
Jen?
That just made me think, so are you going to have new trainings every so often?
My thinking is that at least for a couple of years, we'll do it each year, and then, we'll.
As needed.
As needed, right. And the state trainer, it used to be you had to have it by the state trainer, but there are 2 people helping with the training this year, and I think it won't be long before we don't need that extra person, because we're creating the modules together and making them tailored to RSU 5. And we've had some good thinking and good work that happened this week around that. So I feel like we'll be able to sustain it ourselves. And I think we could do the training, but if it's just a couple people, it might be, instead of a 2 full day, it might be in a smaller group. It's better if you have a bigger group, because some of the activities you need a lot of people for, so. We could also invite others to come to our training. We do have 2 people outside coming to our training, and we could, if some other districts have training on an off year, eventually we could send ours to. But it's nice if they have ours.
Through GC?
Not yet. No. No.
Okay.
Potential.
Any other questions? Ready for vote? So this is approving the RSU 5 Peer Mentor and Support Handbook. All those in favor?
Thank you.
Opposed? No. We lost Erica.
And that's with those few edits
Yep.
So I'm going to turn this over to Anne Marie Spizzuco, who will talk about the local credentialing.
Good thinking, Cynthia. So do we have a motion for consideration and approval of the local credentialing committee handbook? Jeremy? Kate? I'm only looking left for this one. Okay, Jeremy and Kate, thank you. Now that I can see you guys.
Cynthia, what color is their packet?
Oh, their color is gray.
Great, okay. Yes. Hi, I'm Emery Spizzuco. I teach kindergarten at Moore Street, and I have been on the professional certification committee, and the state has decided that they did away with the law that created the last plan that we had. So now the current plan's been appealed, and so this plan will, that is now called Local Credentialing Committee, will be in effect July 1st, if you guys approve it. And we just wanted to understand at the beginning that this is a transition for people that already have plans in place. Like, I have a plan, I don't renew until 2023, so I don't have to write a new plan to make it fit this. But you'll see when I talk about what they're going to do. So everyone that starts a new plan after July 1st will write it in this way. So what we did, 3 of us from the committee met. So we had a teacher from Powell, teacher from Durham, and I was from Moore Street. We took our old plan, we took what the law said, and so a lot of the things are what are in the old plan, and then what we need to add. So this support system is for all the schools in RSU 5. There's a representative from each school, and because we now will have the mentoring, people that are representing won't have to do the plans for the new teachers, since they'll have individualized plans. So looked through and looked at the staff that need to have their certification from this committee, and we looked at how many staff they had, and if they had under 25, we felt that a half a representative would be enough, and if they had 25 to 49 staff, that one representative could do it for the school. And Freeport High is the only one that had 50 plus, so they're going to keep having 2 representatives. And just want to make sure you note that we're going to look at this every year, and if there's a school that has more than what their number is, then we would look to having another representative at that school. If, say, Freeport Middle School grew and they had 50, 50 plus teachers, then they would get another. So that's a little bit fluid there. And then the process is the same. People that are interested need to let their building administrator know by the 15th of April if they want to be a representative for their school. And they have to have at least 3 years of teaching experience, hold a professional certificate. And each school holds their own vote. And if there's a tie vote, then there would be a runoff. And the superintendent appoints one administrator to the LCC, and it has been Cynthia in the past. Before this, it was different principals. It was it wasn't very consistent. So we have all told Cynthia on the committee it's been great to have her, because she we'll look up something, she'll call the state for us and make sure that things are running. And then at the meeting, there's a chairperson of the committee, a secretary, and so it has what the responsibilities are. And the committee will meet once a month, and what will happen is the people from each school will bring any files that they need to talk about. Someone might have all their credits done, so they would be signed off that they've finished, and then, but there also might be a question. Someone might say, well, this person wants to get credit for teaching cooking after school. Will that fit in? And we discuss whether. And the nice thing about having a committee is, you know, you're working with these people in the school, and you're not saying yourself, no, I don't think you can do that. You can say, the committee, I took this to the committee, and the whole committee decided for these reasons that we don't think that you should get credit for that. And what's also different is that now going forward, teachers will only have a conditional certificate or a professional certificate. Before there were 3 or 4 other types of certificates. So a professional certificate is a 5-year certificate. People graduating from college in Maine that have taken all the scores will start off with a 5-year certificate. So there's another good reason for the mentors, because they'll come into the school brand new, having no teaching experience, but they'll already have a professional certificate. So the mentor will help them through all that certification part besides the teaching parts of what they need to do. And a conditional certificate would probably be someone that came from out of state, and there might be some things that they need to, maybe each state sets their own testing scores for the tests that they need to take, and so in another state, maybe they had lower scores and they have to take the test here again, or it might not be the same test, so they have to take it in Maine. And a person can get a conditional certificate for 3 years, and if they don't complete what they need to complete in the 3 years, then they don't go to professional and they don't get to be a teacher. And then it's now an online certification process, so once everyone has completed, then their rep from their school brings it to our meetings, and from January to June, we recommend whether the person can be recertified or not. They have to have an account online, and it helps to streamline the process. Though they were starting it in 2017, which was my year to be renewed, and then they didn't have it set up. So they gave everyone paper saying that they would be a waiver for a year, and then they had it ready in 2018, so that made 5 years to 2023. Now this year, they've gone through a year. I think we have everything, we're all set in RSU 5, but they finally finished all the 2018, and now we're setting up with the 2019. I think it'll be a smoother, and just, we do not, as the notes there, we don't certify ed techs. They have an authorization that they go through the DOE. We also don't certify school psychologists, social workers, or speech therapists. They go through the Department of Ed and send their records through, and the administrators have their own system. So this is for all the educators that don't fit under the social worker, speech, or and it's our responsibility to communicate the certification information to the people in our building. We all have, we go through the files, and we let people know if they haven't given us a copy of their certification, or if they haven't given us any of their verification that they've taken the courses. The one very nice thing, we were just talking about this at our staff meeting today when I was talking about what this would look like once it's voted, and people would say, you know, the nice thing in this RSU is that we get a lot of in-house training, so people can use those credits right there, and it's great because it makes sense to what we're doing on a day-to-day basis. So the mentor program and the local credentialing committee will work together. They're two separate committees, but the chairperson of the mentors will meet with the credentialing committee to let us know where, because overall we're in charge of, only the chairperson from the credentialing committee would be able to recommend the mentees to move to their next level of certification. So they're working in tandem, but we won't have all meetings together. We would just meet with them on a regular basis to make sure that we have the information we need to put online. The new thing that, the plan has to be built around their goals aligned to the Marshall rubrics, and presented at least 3 years before their expiration. And we had 2 years in the past, but we felt like, even though there's 5 years in between, it goes by really fast. And when people wait until a year or two before, then some people are rushing to find a course because they haven't been able to get all the credits they need. And also the Marshall rubrics, different educators have different rubrics, and we'll put the link online when this whole document goes online, and we'll have a link to that too, so that people don't have to go somewhere else to look. But like social workers, even though we don't, social workers have one, special educators have one, regular classroom educators have one, nurses have one. So there's all different Marshall rubrics depending on what you're, so all of those people would still be under us, and they would use their Marshall rubric to set up their goals. End of the year, the committee will do a reflection and make recommendations for any revisions or program improvements we want to make for the committee. And then on the last page, page 5, are some examples of professional growth credits. Educators have to take 90 hours, or the equivalent of 6 professional growth credits, aligned with their professional growth goals. And we wanted to put in that stipend positions are not eligible for certification hours, just because you're already getting paid, so it didn't make sense to have it also be getting professional growth credits. And then the different examples. When someone takes a college course, 1 college credit is 1 professional growth credit. Most college courses are 3, so they're already halfway there if they've taken that. And then recertification credits are 1.5, and CEUs. We have a lot of other states, CEUs are a big thing. That's like all they can get for the. But a lot of ours, it can be CEUs or how many hours they attended the workshop. And then in-service trainings, 15 hours is 1 growth credit. Non-paid committee work, again. In the past, a lot of committees were unpaid. Being on a math committee, social studies committee, you just volunteered. But now they're often paid. So that's what they were saying today at the staff meeting. So what's an unpaid committee? I said, well, if there was an attendance committee that your principal wanted that was unpaid but wanted it for your school, then you could use some of those hours. And then an independent study. This also, if a person wanted that, they would have to bring a detailed plan to us of what their independent study was going to be. And then supervising an intern is 50. That's it in a nutshell. Any questions? Yes.
Mara?
How long is the professional growth plan? Is that for the whole certification period?
For 5 years.
So it's for 5 years?
For the 5 years, yes.
I just didn't know if I saw that anywhere in here, and not being an educator, I wasn't sure
Oh, yeah.
how long it was. Yeah.
So some people will get certified this year in 19, and they won't be up for 5 years, but in September they'll start a new plan. Because the thing is, if they don't have a plan in place, what they do can't count. So there are people this year that didn't have a plan in place and had all this great in-house training, and they can't use those credits.
Okay.
So we were thinking the sustainability committee, where we didn't get any teacher volunteers for that committee, that's a non-paid committee.
There we go. We'll
If they're looking for credit.
Okay. As long as it fits, yes, the rubrics.
So it says on here the mentor requirements, so just 3 years of teaching, not 3 years in our district. So you could be you could potentially be in your own mentee state and be eligible to be a mentor?
Which page, sorry?
So I was thinking to be a mentor, you had to be in the district 3 years, but that's not the case, according to this. It's just 3 years of teaching experience.
This is for a representative to it's not for a mentor.
It says to be eligible to be a mentor,
Okay.
teachers must have at least 3 years of teaching experience. Page 4.
Page 4, okay, let's see.
I mean, was the intent that
Okay.
they would be 3 years in RSU 5 before they were eligible to be a mentor?
Yes. Yes. I guess the refer to the peer mentor and support handbook is, maybe we should say that overrules the other. Yes, it is. So that's good. Well, can fix that. Thank you for catching that.
Kate? Just look left at her.
One of the examples that I think Cynthia gave earlier was a guidance counselor could possibly be a mentor. Is a guidance counselor a teacher?
The people that are certified through the credentialing committee are under an educator umbrella, so they're considered an educator.
Okay.
So,
Any other questions on this one? Thank you for all of your hard work on this, Anne Marie. I'm
you.
sure this is. Did you vote? We have not voted. Are you guys ready? All those in favor? None opposed. Thank you. All right, and we already did the assistant principal. Oh, we're back to public comments. All right, so I would take a motion for consideration and approval to enter into executive session as outlined in 1 MRSA, Section 4056A, for the purpose of discussing the superintendent's evaluation. Kate and Candy, all those in favor? None opposed. Thank you.